Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of The Dave Show. We are looking at a hearing about the USAID and the absolute cesspool of corruption. It is getting spicy in the debates here. The allegations and stuff is getting crazy. So let's get into it. 10,000 subscribers. Let's do it.
And this hearing is just the beginning. Accountability is coming. Thank you also to our witnesses today. The corruption going on behind USAID's doors has been a wake-up call for all Americans.
Yeah, it has.
As chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, I spent the last 2 years exposing the Biden administration's sabotage of our border and the policies that kept America safe. I saw firsthand their willful refusal to protect this country. Under the guise of foreign aid, USAID has been an unapologetic front for a far-left agenda. It has become self-evident there weren't a handful of foolish policies, but rather a coordinated strategy of radical, idiotic, and often anti-American priorities. Idiotic, you say? Millions to teach Moroccans how to make pottery? The Moroccans were making pottery before we were a country. This entire debate today and the crocodile tears from Democrats just goes to show what's wrong with this town. Not a single Democrat I've heard has expressed dismay at the many examples of crazy, wasteful spending. I don't understand the objection to a deep dive in how we spend our money, but perhaps it's the fact that over the last several weeks, a massive surge has occurred in the search for a criminal defense attorney. That probably says it all. 5 times in this city, any other city in the nation. I'd like to remind the committee that President Kennedy unilaterally created USAID through an executive order in 1961. Yet the President Trump, orders a momentary pause after winning a mandate for reform, and Democrats cry, constitutional crisis. This is after 4 years of reckless spending and unrepentant lawlessness.
It's been a lot longer than 4 years, my friend. It's been going on for decades. Pretty much, I think, since Kennedy formed it, it transformed into this slush fund, and it's never, they never looked back.
From the Biden administration, I want the American people to understand how this works in Washington. As long as you're spending other people's money, no one bats an eye. But the second you want to save taxpayer dollars, the swamp cries wolf, or in this case, unprecedented constitutional crisis. This breathless, fake outrage from the left is utterly insane. And you know what the American people, you know they can see right through it. The generosity of Americans and the blessing of giving aid to others has always been one of our most valuable tools for diplomacy. The American people have a proud history of championing aid to our fellow man. But
and like around the world, I mean, it's not just like helping on Americans, which we definitely should, but we help around the world with disasters and whatever, famine, which is exactly what that department originally, what the intent was, I believe. So, but it is warped into some kind of Frankenstein slush fund monster. So,
lawless bureaucrats have poisoned that goodwill. Many USAID programs are wasteful and actively sabotage our diplomatic relationships by forcing woke ideology on our partners. Just look at PEPFAR, a beacon of hope in the fight against HIV/AIDS, yet the Biden administration even weaponized this crucial program, jeopardizing lives and undermining our relationship with African nations. Under Administrator Powers, our message to Africa was explicit, as it was heinous. Abort your babies and violate your religious convictions, or we won't grant you life-saving aid. Let me be crystal clear to those who've been complicit in this betrayal. Firing those involved is just a start. We have a long way to go. And one last point. I want to correct the record on a couple of things.
First, brutal.
Elon Musk and the team that is working does not have access to personal data. They don't have access to your Social Security number. That is a lie. Elon Musk does have a security clearance. He has a...
Now, even if they do have access to that information, as far as I understand, it's read only, right? So they can't actually, they're not doing any, I guess they could do it. They're computer savvy enough, but they're not doing it. So we have to take that for face value until we actually see evidence of them doing stuff, that they're not supposed to be doing. Until that happens, I have full faith in Elon and President Trump and the Dogers, as President Trump called them, and what they're doing. So yeah, I think it's great that they're doing a deep dive into the money trail. That's all they're doing.
The top secret security clearance by God, he makes the rockets for NASA.
Yeah.
But the suggestion that he somehow can't be trusted to dig into how we're spending our money is nothing but a smokescreen to hide the corruption and the wasteful spending that has occurred there. And I am personally offended at the left's continued references to 19-year-olds and 21-year-olds in their doing work. There are 19-year-olds who have won the Medal of Honor defending this country. Just because you're 19 doesn't mean you're some child who can't be trusted. It is offensive. And if you're 19 years old out there, 20 years old, and you're serving this country, by God, your service matters. Keep serving. We thank you for that.
God bless you all.
It would appear that I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman.
And out of breath.
I yield.
Mr. Barr is now recognized. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the very important hearing exposing the jaw-dropping waste at the USAID. And many USAID foreign assistance grants are not only wasteful, but counterproductive to our diplomatic and foreign policy objectives. Just a few examples: $75,000 for a drag show workshop in Ecuador, $37 million for services for sex workers and their clients and transgender people in South Africa, $31 million for providing USAID employees with resilience, wellness, and work-life balance counseling, $24 million to build green transportation alternatives in Georgia, $500,000 to help Indonesian coffee companies become more climate and gender friendly, $15 million to promote LGBT rights for individuals in Kenya, and $2 million to conduct sex change surgeries in Guatemala through a trans-led organization.
This is all such a scam. It is a total scam. It is a way for these Democrats to get their kickbacks and make millions. Again, it's like you keep on hearing that, these people, they come into Congress and, some of them are legitimately wealthy before they come into Congress, but most of them are just like normal citizens, and they're making, I don't know, whatever a congressman makes, like 150, 200,000, something like that a year. I mean, it's a good salary, but they serve for 2 or 3 terms, and all of a sudden they have like $6-7 million in their bank account. It's like, that doesn't happen. That's not normal. That's not normal. So where's the money coming from? The USAID and a lot of other departments, I am sure. Boy, it's just.
My colleagues on the other side of the aisle are whining that President Trump has fired the Inspector General of this agency. Thank goodness for President Trump for firing an Inspector General for not exposing what Elon Musk has exposed with this waste. Are these programs what hardworking American taxpayers should be funding? But let me focus on Uganda, because my colleague from Texas raised that issue, a country that has thousands of soldiers fighting for our counterterrorism interests against al-Shabaab in Somalia. And that country was severely punished by the Biden administration for signing its anti-homosexuality law into law in May of 2023. The Biden administration revoked Uganda's AGOA eligibility, enacted visa restrictions on Ugandan individuals, and pressured the World Bank to prohibit new public financing. Despite this, USAID has provided a $600,000 grant to, quote, empower Uganda's LGBT community to push back against this legislation, and a $5.4 million grant to shift public perception and attitudes in Uganda towards LGBT acceptance and to train LGBT individuals on the skills needed to engage in the economy.
This is so evil.
In Uganda, China is expected to finance the $5 billion East African crude oil pipeline directly because Western leaders and the World Bank are walking away from the project because the Biden administration's response to their own domestic legislation. Mr. Primorak, should taxpayer dollars go toward penalizing countries like Uganda for making their own internal domestic political decisions on?
Yeah, heaven forbid they, have a conscience and can make good decisions for their government. That's just so horrible.
Social issues that one administration doesn't agree with, which in turn strengthens countries' relationships with our adversaries like the communists in China.
That's treasonous. Just treasonous.
Congressman, I've spoken to many officials from the region there,
research,
and they explained to me their shock when they would prepare for meetings with Secretary Blinken. They prepared about how can we work together to combat China, actually. But when they had the meeting, they were hit with the woke things about the climate, about the LGBT, and all these issues. They were utterly stunned that here they are, Africa. They know about the challenge and the great geostrategic fight that we have, ready to work with us, but we weren't ready to work with them.
Well, look, I get it. The gentleman from Texas disagrees with the Ugandan people. I get it. The Biden administration disagreed with the Ugandan people, and Secretary Blinken and USAID in the previous administration disagreed with the Ugandan people on this issue of homosexuality legislation. I get it. The question is not their opinion. The question is, what is the diplomatic job of the State Department and USAID?
Exactly.
Is it to lecture the Ugandans, or is it to help us counter Belt and Road? Is the job of the State Department and USAID to advance American national security? That's the question. And what they did in that instance with Uganda is compromise American national security and empower our adversary.
Treasonous.
Representative Yoho, Ted, it's good to see you. Thank you for your amazing work and your authorship of the BUILD Act. You were instrumental in the passage of that bill and authorized U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. Can you see DFC playing a much more effective role in advancing our interests abroad and countering China's Belt and Road?
Absolutely.
And if you could, how can reforms like equity scoring and country eligibility changes help U.S. investments in countries like Panama?
It's a big reform. I mean, that's the best tool we have to counter the BRI, the Belt Road Initiative, and the equity scoring is a must fix. It's something that has to be, because right now it limits what the DFC can do, and then raising the country of eligibility allows us to go into these countries strategically where we can counter the BRI where we can't go now. And this is something that we're going to talk about next month in the reauthorization. And I hope it's a bipartisan effort, and there's a lot of support, but if we don't do it, we're going to see that much more influence, and it goes to people that aren't friendly to the United States.
Well, thanks for your leadership on that, and I agree with you. Move from aid to trade.
To trade.
Aid
and
to trade,
thank you
baby.
to President Trump for his leadership on rooting out all of this waste and frankly, activity that undermines our national security.
It really is. It is just amazing the depths of how corrupt that department is and how many hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars every year has been spent from our hard-earned taxes. It is a travesty. It is a crime. I hope somebody goes to jail. Firing people is not enough because that is just horrible. It's treasonous. Like I said, I said it a few times. It's treasonous. Somebody needs to be held accountable. More than one person. All right. Well, listen. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please like, subscribe. Slap that bell around a little bit, and you'll always know when I put up another video. All right. Well, listen. Until the next episode, stay safe. Know that you are loved and appreciated. And until we meet again, have a great day.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Let the thoughts build up until I can't hear.